Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Kylie and today I'm so excited because I have these Alaskan king crab legs, homemade papaya salad with white rice and the seafood sauce from yesterday. So grab your spoons, grab your forks, or grab your chopsticks and let's eat together. Okay, where do I start? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yum, I haven't had seafood in so long. Mmm. 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 I got these new wooden spoons and I just got here today, so I'm so excited because I realized how much the metal was making noise. I just didn't like that. Mmm. Mmm. Mmm, so good. So today, I want to talk about this man-child I dated right before I moved to Atlanta, and how at first when things like breaking up and stuff happen to you, it's hard not to feel sad about it, but truly at the end of the day, it's a blessing in disguise. Oh, I need a napkin. Okay. So this is the same guy who was living at that crash pad I was trying to get into, and we started dating. And I guess we never had the talk about exclusivity, but I mean, everybody knew we were together, so I think maybe it was just understood. And there were a lot of red flags that I ignored. I mean, I see it now, but at the time it was like really easy to just be like, make an excuse for it. So definitely be conscious and aware for those of you who are still single when you're dating to not ignore the red flags, because they always come up later. They always come up sooner or later, and they'll bite you in the butt. So everything was like good. And even though we worked together, we didn't always have like trips together because he was a pilot, and I was just, I don't know, that was like my first real adult job, so I like didn't want to screw it up, and I wanted to keep my personal life separate from my professional life. So I was very adamant about not showing PDA or whatever in public. And for some reason he would like get mad at me when I didn't want to. But like we were in uniform and it just made me really uncomfortable. So I would always act really weird around him at work. Well, I should have known that that was going to make him a little bit insecure, because he confided in my friend at the time. And I didn't know this at the time, but they were, like, he would stay up late chatting with her, like, on Facebook and stuff, and it was just, once I found out, that was like the beginning of the end for us. Because it just made me uncomfortable. I asked him not to do it, and then he just kept doing it. Who I thought was my friend, also kept doing it. And I kind of felt like they were complaining about me. Which, you never want to feel like your friend and your boyfriend are talking about you behind your back. I mean, who wants that? So, there were a couple of things that led up to, like, the end. So, he was supposed to fly up to Michigan to meet my family. And I had finished a trip early, so I had already gone up to Michigan. I was already up there waiting for him. And he was finishing up a trip. And I guess, like, some thunderstorms started building up in the area that he was in, so a lot of the flights were delayed. And he wasn't gonna be able to catch the last flight that was gonna get him to Michigan. So, of course it was upsetting, but I figured since he had the next few days off that he was just gonna say that he was gonna take the flight in the morning out. Well, it turns out he wasn't. And it was such an awkward conversation because he was like, hey, I'm not gonna make it because our flight gets in later than the last flight that leaves to Michigan. So I was like, okay, well, that's upsetting, but, like, I'll see you in the morning, right? You'll come in the morning? He was just, like, silent. I was like, okay. I just don't know why you would commit to something and then, like, just back out last minute. Like, at the time, I was like, what happened? Like, I didn't understand, but he was just like, no, I'm not coming. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I, like, told my parents, like, I'm dating somebody, like, you're gonna meet him and all that stuff. So, like, to have to go back to my parents and be like, yeah, he's not coming because he's gonna miss the last flight. And then to have them be like, oh, but is he coming in the morning? Because we're, like, really excited to meet him. And I was like, nope, he's just not coming. And I'm sure they knew that that was, like, weird. But, of course, they didn't want to say anything. And they were just like, oh, well, maybe something came up and he just didn't want to tell you right away. So, I don't know. You know, give him the benefit of a doubt, I guess. And see what's going on. So, I go back to the Metro Detroit area and go back to my crash pad where he was. And he's he was from Georgia, so him being up in Detroit wasn't his choice. It was just because they didn't have enough pilots that wanted to go up there at that time, so he was displaced up there. And because he was junior and didn't have a lot of seniority, he didn't have a choice. But before we met, he had put in a bid to go back to Atlanta, to have Atlanta be his base. And I guess he had just heard back, and they said that he was able to transfer bases. And so that meant that he didn't have to be in Detroit anymore, and he could go back home, essentially, to Atlanta. So he tells me this, and I'm sad, but I understand at the same time, and it's not as big of a deal because we were flight crew and we could fly for free, so I was thinking that it could still work. Well, he tells me, like, I don't know, he has to go down in like a couple weeks, and he didn't have anybody to drive with him down. But like, that's how he said it, like, I have to move all my stuff, it's gonna be a long drive, and I don't have anybody to drive down with, but it should be okay. So me hearing that, I was like, okay, like, do you want me to go with you? Like, do you want me to drive down with you? Because he just kind of left it open-ended like that. So he was like, I guess if you want. And he wasn't super stoked about it, but kind of sounded like he wanted somebody to go with him. So I was like, okay. I found out, like, before we took that road trip down for him to move, that he told one of our roommates that I invited myself on the road trip. Like, how weird and awkward. So that was like, rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, okay. And then when I got down there, we stopped by his parents' house. And they're super southern. And I mean, they're really nice people, but I just don't think they are used to people who aren't white. I don't know if that makes any sense. Just because they're from like an area that's like predominantly all white, and they're just not used to, and not saying they're racist, but they're just not used to other ethnicities. So I could tell when I met them that they were really standoffish. Especially his mom. And like, southern boys live to like appease their moms. So if their mom doesn't approve, like, I don't think that they would do it. So it was just an awkward trip altogether. On the trip, he left his laptop open, and I saw that he was still messaging about me to my friend. And that was super upsetting. Like, I was just like, why do you have to keep messaging her? Like, I don't get why you guys have to do that. I didn't get to read the full conversation, but I just saw like her name pop up on his messages. And then he like didn't let me read it. So that was just weird. And then when I got back to Detroit, it was harder to fight about it. Because at that point we were like long distance. During the whole process, I had applied to jobs at headquarters at our airline. And because the headquarters was in Atlanta, and I wanted to be closer to him. So I was gonna change my whole life around for this guy who I guess didn't even, now that I look back at the situation, didn't even respect me. So, you know, I call him, I message him, he doesn't answer. And, you know, I let him know I'm coming down to Atlanta, I have an interview, like, call me, I want to see you. And the next morning is my interview, so I get ready, go to the airport, I haven't heard from him. He hasn't returned my calls. And I get to Atlanta, call him again, he doesn't answer. I leave him a message. I text him. I go to my interview, it goes great, and I'm finishing up at the interview, so I call him again. It's like, hey, do you want to see me? Because I'm like about to get on a plane and go back to Detroit. He doesn't answer. I don't hear anything from him. So I just decided to go back to the airport and pretty much go home. Literally, this was like before anybody knew what the term was. He literally ghosted me. Like, I never heard from him ever again after that. Literally, like never, ever. I was just like, wow, like, and this guy was like 8 years older than me. So I was like 23 at the time. Okay, he was like 30. It's like, you can't even like be an adult and have a conversation with somebody and say, look, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I'm just letting you know. And then just cut all contact and ties from there. But we literally had an okay conversation one day, and then I just never heard from him ever again. He just completely ghosted me. And it was like, at the time I was really confused because no one had ever done that to me before. I eventually got over it, but like, I ended up getting the job and like moving to Atlanta, and like at the time it was kind of like for him, and he just completely ghosted me. It's so funny to laugh about now, but at the time it was like super upsetting. But that was the first pilot I dated, and I was just like so naive about it all, and it just really taught me a lot. So I'm kind of glad that he ghosted me, because it would have never worked. We were from two completely different areas. You know, I grew up in Michigan and he grew up in Georgia, small town Georgia with only white people. So it wouldn't have worked. But it's funny because you think that it's a bad thing when somebody ends a relationship with you, but it was a blessing in disguise. Like, living in Atlanta was probably one of the funnest times I've had. And it allowed me a lot of room to grow and live alone and make new friends that I'm still friends with to this day, like lifelong friends. So it was a blessing in disguise after all. And thank God I wasn't with him, because it was so much easier to enjoy life and get to know people and be open-minded when you're single. So that's my story about being ghosted. Oh, these are hard to break. If you guys have a story about being ghosted, I'd love to read it, so leave it in the comments below. And like I said before, like, I'm so glad that he ghosted the relationship, because my husband is like the best person and man and partner ever. And if I didn't go through that, then I would have never found that and a bunch of other stuff. Then it would have never led me to my husband that I have now. So I'm just grateful for that. And I hope everybody can, especially now, find, situations and scenarios that are happening to you now, and understanding that it's probably going to be a blessing in disguise in the future. Trust me, things always come full circle. So if you have faith, just know that things will always be okay. Things are always temporary, and this life and this time is temporary. So all you can do is really learn from the things that you go through and take away the good things from a bad situation, and just learn how to be a better person. Last bite. Done. I hope you enjoyed my story today about being ghosted. I guess it could be considered like an embarrassing moment as well, but whatever. It was a blessing in disguise. I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy and entertained. If you have any suggestions for books that are good to read, or new series on Netflix or HBO, leave it in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I'd also appreciate that as well. And for my next video, click the subscribe button with that notification bell so you know when the new video is uploaded. Other than that, I'll see you next time.